Hello, ladies and jelly spoons. Welcome to 24K Movies, TV shows, and video game reviews. The place that you always come to find out if that movie is trash or cash, whether it's good or bad. My viewpoints are never bought and paid for. I always say, even if they're bought and paid for, I'm going to give you the truth. You ain't going to pay me to like your crappy movie. Nah. I'm going to tell you. If it's shit, I'm going to tell you. If it's good, I'm going to tell you. If it's bad, I'm going to tell you. If you don't want to waste your time on it, I'm going to tell you. There are always spoilers, and today I have a lot to cover. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it right now. There is a spoiler review for everything I'm covering today. If you haven't seen nothing from the universe, nothing from the movies, you might want to turn away now. What am I talking about? Well, of course, that old... Yeah, you're dying. That was bad segue. Anyway, I'm talking about George Romero's Living Dead collection. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and Survival of the Dead. Sorry if you guys hear music in the background. Some Nimrod outside my window somewhere is playing his friggin' music loud. Anyway, if you're wondering to yourself, I didn't know there were so many Dead films. You're not the only one, because in making this video, I saw all of these films, did not know two of them were connected to this series. Turns out they are. If you don't know who George Romero is, he is responsible for the zombie craze that you see today. Walking Dead, inspired by him. You're talking about Return of the Living Dead, which ironically enough, if you've seen Return of the Living Dead, that's because O'Bannon worked on the Dead series with George Romero. And when they split and went ways, they had sort of a legal battle, that Romero could use Dead of the Dead, and O'Bannon could use Living Dead, which is funny because if you notice, in all of Romero's titles, the only one that says Living Dead is the first film, which ironically, nobody had the copyrights to. Go ahead, look it up and Google it. So amazing how it just slipped through the cracks, and literally there were no royalties because it literally was not copyrighted. You could have literally looked up that movie and put it out as yourself. There's no copyright on that. But oddly enough, the Nightmare Creature pointed out that there was a remake of Night of the Living Dead with the late great Tony Todd, which did have copyrights and reestablished the rights of the franchise back to Romero. So that did happen. Unfortunately, with this being a Dead series review and jump in, I am going to say over the many years of Romero's series passing and going, there have been a lot of fallen people along the way. There have been a lot of people who passed away, including Romero. One of the awesome things that literally drew me in to this series is Night of the Living Dead. Seeing it when I was young. I had no idea what it really was, and just watching it, is as dated as it is now, because you can go back and look at it. They're coming to get you, Barbara. Stop it, you're ignorant. It literally doesn't seem scary by today's standards. But when this came out, if you watched it, remember, you had never seen anything like this. So when it came out, this shit was fucking frightening. People eating people like fried chicken is insane, especially when this came out. Whose mind could think of that? Like, you know, it'd be really scary if somebody was snacking on your neck piece like it was chicken. That's some frightening shit. But to explore it over the years and decades to even today still being one of the biggest franchises in movie history. All of Us Are Dead would not exist. Train to Busan would not exist. None of these people would not exist without the inspiration of O'Bannon and Romero in Night of the Living Dead. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I want you guys to sit back, relax with your favorite bag of snacks, because we have our notebook here and we will be taking notes and talking about a lot of things with the Dead series. George Romero's Living Dead collection. Now, I will say from the beginning, Even though these 6 are the base collection of his entire series, I have to mention 2 films that are connected to this universe. One, by blood, as a child, it's a stepbrother, and the other by homage and honor. So let's talk about the stepbrother. O'Bannon and Romero both worked together on Night of the Living Dead. They parted their ways for having differences of opinions and ideas on where the Dead franchise should go. Romero got Of the Dead, Bannon got Living Dead. Now, if you've never seen Return of the Living Dead, that is the reason why we coined the phrase brains. The first movie to do it, the first movie to have full running zombies, the first movie that broke so many stereotypes of dead. Now, don't get me wrong, I love it both, because a dead person would have atrophy, they would have muscle decay, they would have breakdown, so they would move slow. But the Return of the Living Dead hit me in a way I didn't believe, because if they're running top speed, they don't get tired. Picture, there is one scene from Return of the Living Dead that sticks with me forever. If you've seen the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The police are talking to one of the guys on the inside of the quarantine carton, and he says, they seem to be breaking out. And the guy on the phone, the police officer, says, hold on 1 second. What's going on? And you see a fog in the distance. And through the fog comes running full speed hundreds and hundreds of zombies, including Linnea Quigley, naked with a gigantic mouth, which I find it hard to deal with nudity, sexuality, and eroticism when you're talking about a dead body that literally will chomp your brain and neck open, because they actually explore that in that movie as well. There is a guy who is a vagrant with a shopping cart, and he's wheeling his little shopping cart along, and you see her come walking through the mist. You hear her music in the background, and she's naked, and she has a very flattering body shape. So, honestly, I can't take away from what he did. He stopped and looked at her first. He kind of looked her up and down, because she is a well-endowed, naked female who looks predominantly amazing until the street light hits the face. Once the street light hits the face, it's pretty much ball game, it's over. But he stood around looking like most of us would. Males and females. It's Linnea Quigley, by the way. If you haven't seen that movie, there is a graveyard dance scene. You owe it to yourself to see. I'm not going to say any more. I'm just going to say you owe it to yourself to see Return of the Living Dead. Now, I'm not going to talk about the sequels, because they have sequels too. But I will say this first movie was literally the inspiration for what we have today as running fast zombies who eat brains. He coined the phrase brains. Smart zombies, he coined it. Romero did his smart zombie thing, but it wasn't until like Land of the Dead, which is like 3 or 4. Well, he kind of did it with Bub in the third movie, but he explored it more in Land of the Dead. So anyway, like I said, he looks at her and he's just like, whoa, this is going to be one hell of a night. And then she jumps up with this gigantic open mouth and bites him. And he sounds like somebody biting into an apple when she crunches into his skull. And that is a horrific array of emotions to feel, because first you're like, what the hell? And then you're like, oh, she naked. And then you're like, she look good. And then in the midst of those emotions of being turned on, you're eating like an apple. It's some disturbing subject matter. I have to say, it's disturbing, because everything when you see a zombie tells you to run away. But if you couldn't see the face and it was walking up to you naked and it was Linnea Quigley, you wouldn't run away right away, which is unfortunately how he gets caught. So the movie did that well. I like the realism of that. But when they come running out of the fog and there's hundreds and thousands of them and they're yanking heads off and attacking the police and breaking out a barricade, that was the first time that I have to say to myself, I started ascertaining if I could survive a situation like that. It had realism. True realism. Not that Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead didn't. It just had a realism that we weren't ready for. It also interjected comedy. I would say Romero did a little bit of comedy in Land of the Dead and Day of the Dead, but Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead, there was no comedy. That shit was survival. But I did like the comedy horror aspect of it because it influenced, like I said, I have some shoehorn movies that go right along in here. It's shoehorned, I would say, the homage and inspiration. Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is that zombie movie in the UK with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. For those of you who don't know, it's part of a trilogy called the Coronado trilogy. They were inspired by Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead so much that they used sounds, music, words, verbatim, and lines from Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead, including "They're coming to get you, Barbara," or "We're coming to get you, Barbara." I think they had to change it. But anyway, it inspired them so much that Nick Frost and Simon Pegg were actually in Land of the Dead as zombies in the city that Dennis Hopper ran. Full circle, I have to include it because it's part of the lineage. It's part of the lineage. Return of the Living Dead is part of the Dead franchise by blood because O'Bannon and Romero both worked together on the first film. So by blood, they're together. But shoehorned in, the homage and honor has to go to Shaun of the Dead because it was truly inspired, including the first opening scene in Shaun of the Dead when people are walking and they're showing the words. It literally is... Well, I'm not going to spoil it. If you haven't seen Shaun of the Dead by now, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing with your life? If you haven't seen Shaun of the Dead, I'm going to do a separate Shaun of the Dead video because it just deserves it. But for today, we are dealing with the 6 Romero series. I think I did Return of the Living Dead. I have to check on that. I'll come back. I'll put a pin in that. Hold on, let me put a pin in that. All right, I put a pin in that, literally. And if, for most of you who don't know what this is a pen. You see, back in my day, we had these things called notebooks. And in them, they had paper. And we took this stick, which had ink in it, or another stick, which had graphite. And when we put it on the paper, we moved it, and it made words. I know. No tablets, no computers, no virtual space, no internet. This was your tablet. This was your writing instrument. They even had something in school called penmanship, where they taught you how to write with these tools. Escribe. That's right. Habla español. ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump in to this film. Now, I would love to show you guys trailers for each of these, but this video would not get played on YouTube. Not at all. So instead, I will use my knowledge, my thorough knowledge of all of these films, because I've seen all of them multiple times. Diary of the Dead, not so much. Neither is Survival of the Dead, my favorite, but they're part of the Romero series, so I have to give them light, because for what they are, they're part of the story. In the Romero, I don't know what you call it. I know quadrilogy is 4, quintilogy is like 5. I don't know what 6 is. Six trilogy. We're just going to call it the Living Dead collection. How about that? So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's start off with Night of the Living Dead. Now, Night of the Living Dead, no matter which version you watched, where you watched the remake, which is in color with Tony Todd, or if you watch the original black and white, they're inherently the same movie. The ending changes maybe a little bit in either film. I will say, I'm going to take this off the table because I've had this conversation with a bunch of people, so I'm going to say it here first. Look, racism does exist in film and cinema. We know that. They're reflections of people, they're reflections of politics, they're reflections of real life ideals. Having said that, when the black character who is in this movie, it wasn't a casting choice to make him black. Do you understand that? It was the best actor for the job who happened to be black. You guys understand that? Good. I'm not going to touch on it anymore. Having said that, the movie starts with Barbara, which ironically enough doesn't make it to the end of the movie. Well, she makes it to the end of the movie, but I thought like she would be like, I thought she... Okay, Spoilers. You don't know if you didn't see it. Nobody lives. Nobody lives. The entire cast is unalived. Now, depending on which version you see, if you watch the right version of Night of the Living Dead, there's actual real nude zombies in it, nudity, which is something a lot of people didn't see in the version that they watch. Definitely, I don't think it was in the version that was in theaters. But there is some full nudity because dead people, clothes would come off. Some of them would come out of the ground. They wouldn't have clothes. Now, the funny part is, nowhere else in the Dead series, until I would say Land of the Dead, will you see a nude character. Nudity is really not concentrated on in the Living Dead series, all the way up until I would say the last few installments. Before that, there's no nudity, except for the first movie. Which is insane, because the remake of Dawn of the Dead in 2004, which I'm going to go ahead and say it. Look, Dawn of the Dead 2004 and Dawn of the Dead 1978. I will take Dawn of the Dead 1978 over 2004 every day and 33 times on Sunday. Look, y'all remade it. I like what you did. I like what you tried to do, but you've missed the assignment in the first movie. You missed the assignment for Dawn of the Dead. You had a chance to literally live in this world, suss it out even more, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Mekhi Phifer? Nah. Brah, 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 brah. Brah, 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 brah. Here is my biggest faux pas when it comes to movies. All movies, not just dead movies. Stupid reactions and dumb people. Now, I know in real life there is both stupid reactions and dumb people. But I'm going to speak on this and then I'm going to let it go because it's not a part of the series. Dawn of the Dead 2004 had Mekhi Phifer know his wife was bitten by a zombie, knew that she was turning, she had gray skin. He even had to tie her up and put a bit in her mouth so that he wouldn't get bit because he wanted his child. I will remind you that the body is dead. If the body is dead, then what's in the body is dead as well. But no, he has to have his baby, which he kills a living person over because they're trying to make sense to him that she is dead and the baby is. And his response is, "You trying to kill my family?" Didn't like that. Didn't like the response. Didn't like the setup. The movie didn't need that scene. It also didn't need the scene of the guards locking them in to a store saying, "We don't want you walking around and stealing shit." Hello? Yeah. Yeah, it's the end of the world. Nobody gives a shit about stealing. Yeah, they're not coming back for it. Yeah, they're probably dead eating police officers like taco meat. Nah, man, I don't think they're coming back. Are they going to miss a bed setup? No. And I don't think they're going to miss any mannequins either. Yeah, 1978 did it better. The exploration of the mall was actually one of the greatest points in the movie. Why didn't 2004 do that? Oh, they were busy making sex scenes and some crazy stuff in it. They were about spectacle. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. I mean, they still had that girl scene in the beginning with the roller skates and the husband. That was pretty cool. I did dig that. But yeah, I don't know. Why didn't they explore the mall that way? They did later on in the scene? Is that the scene where the guy was wearing like the high heel shoes and the lady was being done from behind? For some reason, they just had to show some explicit sex scene. Yeah. Oh, so that was meant to be that montage? Really? Hey, movie's got a movie, yo. All right, man, I'll check you back, man. All right, Mr. Future. I'm going back to the past. Talk to you later. Sorry about that, guys. I had a conversation with the future, and they notified me that, in fact, there was a mall exploration scene in Dawn of the Dead 2004, but unfortunately nobody paid attention to what was going on because there was a woman being bent over and having fun. And I don't know why they put that in there either. The other movie didn't need it. That scene was definitely not in Dawn of the Dead, the original. And the mall was literally a character. I have to agree. I'm going to write that one down. Mall is a character. Period. Okay. So in the first movie, like I said, we're not going to do a verbatim of the whole movie, but we're going to paraphrase really quick. Barbara and her brother are, I believe, in the cemetery for a funeral. They're coming from a funeral, going to a funeral. There's something they're in a cemetery for, which is only so many things you can do. They weren't buying hoagies. So he starts making fun of her, like zombies are alive and they're coming, which ironically really happens, and he gets his head caved in on a gravestone by a very fresh-looking zombie, which, to this day, even when I watch it, I'm like, I'm not sure he was a zombie. Maybe he was just a crazy dude hanging out in the cemetery. But the other guy, with half of his clothes missing, definitely comes out of a coffin. And when she makes it to this house, which is the setup of the entire movie, great going. Don't have to worry about different production sets. Don't have to worry about different locations. You shot the entire movie at one house, one claustrophobic scene in the house, outside the house, around the house, and in the basement. Bravo. Bravo. Brilliant. Brilliant. Having said that, there is a scene where they just make this weird soundtrack and people are just eating each other outside. It's like, it's this weird, unnerving sound. And people, which I heard they made barbecued and dipped it in food coloring. These people are snacking on body parts like it's chicken, fried chicken, which is generally disturbing. But if you're watching a black and white version, it doesn't come over much because we don't know the blood. The remake showed blood, which was a little bit more disturbing, but it also had Tony Todd in it, which I'm not going to say he's a more capable actor than the original guy. They're both great, but Tony Todd is Tony Todd. Let's get rid of that. Tony Todd is Tony Todd. So when he was in that movie, you couldn't take your eyes off of him. And what happens at the end kind of pisses you off. I'm not going to lie. It does. But the original Night of the Living Dead movie, it struck like gangbusters. It inspired a new fear, and nobody was ready for it. Years later, they came out with Dawn of the Dead. Now, Dawn of the Dead is the iconic film that sets everything in motion around the world when it comes to zombies. This movie had it all. It had fun. It had ideas. It let you really know what you would do, because between the characters in the movie, you should be able to identify with at least one of them. One of them you would say, that's my character. That's what I would do. Are there dumb reactions? Yes. Are there funny reactions? Yes. Did they take some liberties? Yes. Was it dangerous? Completely. There is a scene in Dawn of the Dead where an actor, a stuntman, literally climbs onto a bunch of crates with a real helicopter blades spinning around, and they made just enough space on his scalp makeup and prosthesis that it would spin around, the blades would chop off the head prosthesis, and he would fall over. That really happened. No CG, no stand-in, no fake helicopter blades. Real helicopter blades, real actor, real head, tiny piece of prosthesis. And this stuntman, this actor, he walked up on top of high boxes. Let me tell you something. I've been around a helicopter in my life twice. I'm 6'5". Each time I'm over bending and they're like, yeah, come. I'm like, no. I see the no. What if it just bends down a little bit? I'm done. I ain't even gonna know I'm dead. I'm just gonna lose my head. It's gonna be over there in the begonias. I'm not even gonna lose it. This guy knowingly climbed up, willingly, walked on top of boxes, and the sound is like, you see the top of his head fly off into the distance, and then he just falls behind the crates. I would have pee running down my leg if I was filming that scene. The balls, the uber jack elephant-sized nuts it took to film that scene. Bravo. That would not happen in today's climate. I don't even think Tom Cruise, who does a stunts, Jackie Chan, who does his own stunts, I don't think none of them would take that liberty. This stuntman did. Bravo. For nothing more than one of the coolest scenes and stunts I've seen in my life, even to this day. To this day, son. 2025. That stuntman from Dawn of the Dead with the helicopter blades that took his head off, bro, you got it. You got the award. You got the assignment. You know what? They don't even give you a name. You are forever named as the bravest stuntman I've ever known. I give you props. Don't know where you are today. Don't know where your family is today. Bro, I could dream and aspire to having nuts your size. I could never do that. Ever. Ever, bro. Good work. Sorry, I had to jump into that. So the story revolves around a few police officers during the outbreak. And let me just start this. The way Dawn of the Dead starts, it starts in a newsroom where the narrative is being spun on national television over what is going on. It is almost a direct continuation of what happened in Night of the Living Dead and where it started to now it's everywhere. So kind of think of it as it started in Night of the Living Dead. Nobody knew what it was, what happened. There's rumors that it came from space. There's rumors that it's alien. There's a bunch of different rumors, but nothing really confirmed, I should say. Which is weird because even to this day, we don't know where the hell it came from. Was it in the Kool-Aid? Was it in grapes? Was it in some steak? Would it come down through the air in spores? Like, we don't know. But Dawn of the Dead starts at a news station, and it's brilliant. Now, depending on which version you've seen, because there are several versions of Dawn of the Dead. A US theatrical version, overseas UK version, a director's version, an unedited version, a holy shit version. There's so many versions of Dawn of the Dead, depending on which one you saw. I like the one where the music is playing in the background. I like that one. I like the one that's themed with the music. Because even before the music comes in, you hear like zombies moaning. It's like, oh, you hear it in the background when Fran is leaning up against the worst wall I've ever seen in my entire life. It looked like somebody took the Overlook Hotel's carpet and just put it on that wall. But she's leaning up against it, and they show this horrible red carpet. I can't get it out of my mind. And you hear that sound, and then it goes right into music, and then you have people arguing on the air. It's scattershot, and I love it because there's 4 or 5 different plots going on in the room. If you're up in the tower, they're arguing about the sites, like today I guess would be like Red Cross and things like that. They're arguing about where people should go. Down below, you have the cameraman and friend talking about what are we going to do after this, because clearly things are changing too fast to get a hold of. On the stage, you have a guy explaining to the public, which is expositing to us, what zombies are and what they do and how to handle it. I believe some of the paraphrasing he says is, the people they kill, get up and kill. Whoever they kill, get up and kill. They eat, I think he said they don't eat for nourishment, they eat for, like, I don't know what it is he said, paraphrasing. But him and this other reporter who has his head up his ass, this black guy, he's not listening to it. There's people behind him putting peace up signs behind his head. And the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, why the fuck are you guys joking around? You do realize people are being eaten like taco meat everywhere. What is the joke? Why are you putting a peace sign behind somebody's head? And during the midst of these guys talking, they get into an argument, and then somebody else gets into an argument. And then here comes Flyboy, who forgot his ID, trying to get through security. And why are you checking this guy for security anyway? Once again, people are eating people like taco meat. Why are you checking his ID? Why would he be here if he didn't have to be? Why would he be here if he didn't want to be? Who decides in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, I'm going to go down to the news station and break in? What are you breaking in for? What are you breaking into? Exactly. Didn't make sense. But I digress.
When people are doing all this ignorant stuff, you do realize you can die too.
Exactly. So what they hash out is Fran and Flyboy have a plan. and he's going to go meet his friend Raj later on, and they all have a plan. So even before we see Raj and his partner, even before we see Ken 4 and all his foriness, there is a plan to do something. We just don't know what it is next. And then it goes directly from the newsroom to a standoff hostage situation for some reason. The police are clearing the buildings, I guess because they don't want nobody to occupy private residences for I don't know what reason. Everybody would be boarded up and locked in their home, surviving as long as they could. I don't know why they're clearing homes and making people go to buffets where they're going to be eaten. But it is what it is. And then out of nowhere, you're met with some racism, some humor, some very dated makeup on an actor who is clearly not Hispanic. Clearly not Hispanic, but is playing a Hispanic in a wig. And then you have a cop, which I don't know why the dialogue is there. It's funny because now it's gone by so many years that I actually quote it, and I look forward to hearing it, even though I shouldn't. It's totally deplorable. It's a lot of racist terms. Every racist term you could think of that they created is said by this cop in like 1 minute. Everything deplorable that you can think of racistly, you can say to somebody, this cop has to say it in full view of a boom microphone so that you can hear all of it. I don't know why we needed to hear it. But don't worry, he doesn't hang around long. Don't worry about that. He doesn't hang around long. So they make it into this building, and that's when they realize how much the shit has hit the fan, and they don't have any control over the situation. And we're introduced to Ken Foree later on in the basement with Raj, and Dave Chappelle's illegitimate father, who says, "Shoot it in the head, man." If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and rewatch this movie. You'll see Dave Chappelle's, as somebody who looks surprisingly like Dave Chappelle.
Looks like it could be his brother or something.
Yes. Says, shoot it, man. Shoot it in the head. This video's going to be too long for me to insert it. Just go watch it. You'll get the joke. Mind
you, the guy that's supposed to be shooting the zombie looks like the Adventures of Pete and Pete, the older brothers. Like, it could be his brother.
I didn't think about that, but okay. Anyway, again, the reason why I'm mentioning this scene is because there's so many amazing things that happen behind the scenes that I feel the need to thrust them forward so that you guys understand. During the filming of the scene where Miguel, this woman's boyfriend or husband, walks out looking like Lionel from the Jeffersons, but he's blue. He bites into her arm while she's hugging. Well, he bites into her neck while he's hugging her, and then he bites into her arm. And I know you're saying, well, it's a zombie movie. People bite into everybody. I want to remind you guys of something you probably don't know. The actress had a prosthesis on, and at the time, the actor did not know how deep he bit in to the prosthesis. So when he bites into her, he's really biting into her. And that scream, that blood-curdling scream that you hear, yeah, that's really her screaming. Because the actor bit through the prosthesis into her.
By accident.
So you have the helicopter blade scene. You have Lionel from the Jeffersons eating her like taco meat live on camera. You can see that this filming from beginning to end was groundbreaking and also probably a lawyer's course of what not to do on movies going forward. I guarantee you there was some form of documentation written up after Dawn of the Dead. It was like, yeah, we can't do that. We have to watch this. We can never put a helicopter and a human being in the same scene like that again. We got off lucky. Check. But the movie goes forward to where the trio is, well, it's kind of a duo. The duo meets the other duo, and they form 4 people getting in a helicopter and flying out of town, which unfortunately that would be a great idea, but nobody thought of the fuel problems. You can't just fly anywhere on Earth in a helicopter. It's limited by fuel. So where they decide to land is a mall to refuel, because, you know, every mall I know has a helipad and tons of fuel. I can't think of one mall that has a gas station near it, on it, around it, let alone a helipad. I'm quite sure they're out there. I've just never been to a mall that can give you gas. which is weird because I've also never been to a mall that has a full gun store inside of it. I know they exist. Don't get me wrong. I'm being transparent. I do know malls have these things. I've just never been to a mall that has I have a mall that's seen cars inside. All right, scratch that one. They do have, I have been to a mall, Cherry Hill Mall, had cars inside on display, so I'll give them that, but, okay. But I am going to say, I've never been to a mall that had fuels, a trucking station, literally in the parking lot, strategically placed, but I'm not going to pick it apart. You know me, I will pick it apart because I don't want to nitpick it because it's one of my favorite movies. But having said that, there are some things at the mall that happen that I may have wrote in my book that we need to discuss real quick just before we move on. Okay, so I'm going to flip to the section of, what is this? What the hell? That is the section we're on right now. And number one for what the hell. These are in no particular order. I'm just going to, throw them out there. You respond any way you like in the comments. Number one from what the hell? We're out here. We have Flyboy in a helicopter. You have two people in trucks. The idea is to take the trucks, block the mall's entrance and exit so that no more zombies can get in or nobody can get in. And then we clear out everybody in the mall. Great plan. Horrible execution. Inside the mall, they talk with walkie-talkies a lot. So you know they have them. Yet when they're in a helicopter separated by time, space, sound, and two tractor trailers, nobody brought a walkie-talkie. No way to talk to each other. No way to, radio anybody in case of saying, yo, man, there's a zombie about to eat your leg like taco meat. You might want to look out for it. And I have to piggyback off of that onto another one. Ken 4, you have one job. To watch your partner. One job. Watch your partner. I understand you getting frustrated because he's going crazy because he done seen some shit. But why did you turn your truck around and go all the way to the entrance and wait for him when you know nobody is watching his back? Why? Your only purpose is to watch his back. Matter of fact, why wasn't you running from truck to truck doing this? Why did you have him do it? Not gonna go there. But why did you leave your wingman? What was the purpose of you moving your truck around out of view so that you can't see him? And the helicopter has to come down, which this would be a great time for a walkie-talkie. You know, the ones you were using in the mall to talk to each other because, you're 7 places. You want to talk to each other, in case there's some critical shit happening. Yeah, we left those inside with Fran. She needed the walkies. We don't need them. We left them up there with Fran. So the helicopter comes down and he's buzzing because there's no horn in the helicopter. There's no beep beep. No. He has to lower the helicopter enough for Ken 4 to see. And then Ken 4's like, what? I don't understand. What's going on? You have one job. Watch Raj. Why aren't you there? Why are you parked here? Why aren't you there? You know there's zombies walking through this trucking depot. You've seen them. You've hit them. Why did you pull away from the one person you're supposed to be watching? Why? And then you get mad that you got to go back there and check on him. That is your one job, bruh. Your one job was to watch his back. Where the hell were you? Why didn't y'all have walkie-talkies? Why does Flyboy have to lower his helicopter and buzz you to say, hey, I see him getting snacked on. Go there. So, of course, A plus B equals C in the what the hell equation. And Raj ends up getting snacked on in a very bad way. And we know that's ball game for him. That's ball game for him. And you know what? I'm not going to absolve him from being stupid because he was stupid. First of all, they're zombies. They're not Pomeranians. They're not Huskies. They're zombies. If you crawl into a truck to hotwire it and dangle your legs out like they're kebabs, what do you think is going to happen? You could have pulled your legs in and closed the door. Even if they climb up on the side and bang on it, you get a warning. Or bang on it before they bust the glass, you get a warning. Why is your legs dangling out like literal pieces of hot dog and fried chicken and pork fried rice for these things to eat? That That's my second what the hell. That's my second what the hell.
Yeah, the door should have definitely been shut.
Thank you. Then I'm going to piggyback off of that one because in the midst of going back and forth, he leaves his bag because, I don't know, maybe he's flustered, but he's screaming yeehaw and going crazy. So then he drops his bag and he's like, I got to go get it. I got to get my bag. You mean the fact that we just came back from there and you almost got eaten? This is before his bite. So he had a chance to escape with no bite. Literally. I don't know what was so important in the bag that couldn't be replaced. You have a whole mall inside that you can replace it. But whatever. He goes back for the bag. And then during the middle of him trying to escape from truck to truck, he holds his hand on both trucks and straddles and swings his taco meat, hot dog, hamburger, chicken feet back and forth to zombies because he tries to kick them. Then he decides it's a great job. I'm going to jump down there and grab the bag that I dropped accidentally. And what happens? He gets bit. You know he gets bit, and he deserves it. And I would rather they just took Raj out then, because his scenes after that, they're all stupid. None of them brought anything more to the movie besides him being a liability. And quite honestly, in a situation where the dead are taking over the earth, liabilities, I'm sorry, I know it sounds cold, I know it sounds bad. Remember I told you before about the bow and arrow? Remember I told you about the ding neck piece? Some people got to get it. That's all I'm saying. Some people got to get it, bro. Talk about the end of the world, talking about life. You got to make some decisions. Some decisions you ain't going to like. Some decisions you may be able to get over with a few tears and a few cries. My cry, 2 tears in a bucket. But anyway, here nor there, they go along and then they decide, why are we trying to leave? Let's live in the mall. Great idea. Except for this is my rule. Rule number 4 in a zombie apocalypse in the Rain Crow book of zombie apocalypses. Never stay anywhere that other people would want. I'll say that again. Never stay anywhere that other people would want, because then people have to attack you to take what you have, because you are the king of supplies. Go to a place that people don't know about, don't see, and don't know it's there. You have a higher survival chance of surviving longer. I mean, the people inside there with you may turn and eat you like taco meat, but you have a better chance of survival. So they decide, it's our mall, we're going to stay in this mall, and we're going to live here. We're not going to cover the helicopter, because we got it like that, we flossing. And we're going to go around this entire mall, which they do. They clear the entire mall. I've never seen nothing better except for The Walking Dead when they cleared a prison. Great job, because remember, this is in the 70s. This ain't The Walking Dead in 2020s. This is literally the 70s. So great job, guys, clearing them all. Of course, somebody gets their leg ripped open again. I'm not even going to go into it. But then they decided, let's just live our life. Forget about the zombies. Let's have parties and play video games and go around and eat steak and throw money around and loot every place we want to do. And I get it. I get it. There's a moment of levity where you finally get to let down and let off some steam. And that's great. This movie does it well in spades. But then there is a group of people. I'm not going to define them. I'm just going to say they're a motorcycle group of people who want them all. And sooner or later, you were going to have to fight this, because you should have planned on this, because it is a mall. People are going to fight over supplies. You're in a literal mall full of supplies. You should have known it was going to happen. Anyway, it's at this point that they could fuel up the helicopter, because yes, they didn't leave it fueled. And Roger actually says this. Yeah, I don't want to leave the bird up there with fuel in it. Why not? You mean to tell me you'd rather take the time to refuel a helicopter on a roof if your life depended on it, instead of leaving it full of fuel? That's my number 3 in what the hell. What the hell? Yeah, number 3. Let's leave it empty. For what reason? I don't know. But I have to counter that because Fran says something to him that pisses him off, but it's 100% realistic. She said, I want to learn how to fly that bird. And he looks at her angrily, like, why? She's like, because if something happens to you, we want to be able to fly out of here. And he was like, nothing will ever happen to me. That's the face he made as he slammed down the bullets and the gun. And I'm like, why the hell are you pissed off? You think you made a deal with God to live forever? No. All of y'all got expiration dates on. It is a zombie apocalypse. And he was angry that she wanted to learn how to fly the plane. I think all of y'all should have learned how to fly the helicopter. That was the whole point. You mean the helicopter that has no fuel in it up on the roof for some reason. Anyway, the movie comes to a climax where the bikers break in and they don't want none of this stuff. Here's my final what the hell. They don't want none of the stuff in the mall. They just want to trash the mall. They wanted to break in to trash the mall. I don't know why. Somebody takes a teddy bear. And then in the midst of them breaking into the mall to destroy the mall, there's a guy who keeps trying to take his blood pressure with zombies around. Zombies that you let in by breaking the doors open. Thousands of them. You're going to take the time in the midst of zombies to sit down and take your blood pressure. I'm going to let that go. I'm going to let that one go. And then, for some reason, Raj, and I'm going to use his real name because I love using his real name over his character's name, so I'm going to use it, Ken Ford, decide we're going to fight for the mall. It's our mall. What? What? Anyway, what happens, what you think happens? Flyboy, because Raj is already dead by this time. Flyboy ends up getting caught in an elevator and he jumps down for, I don't know what reason. He needed some keys or something. But he jumps down and I know there's no way he could climb back up. And he knows there's no way he can climb back up. So when he can't climb back up, the elevator opens and they come in and they eat his legs like he's a piece of Kentucky Fried Chicken, extra crispy. They snack on his leg meat. And you pretty much know that's the end. Now, when it comes to zombies in this movie, some people instantly get up and become zombies, and some of them it takes days. In the case of Raj, it took days for him to change. Now, he was bitten on the same place, on the leg, but I guess it's how many bites you get. I don't know if it's in the saliva, because Flyboy turns almost instantly. I would say 3 minutes and he's up again and he's blue and he's walking around. And because he remembers where they were hiding in the mall, he leads all the zombies up with him to where they're hiding, to where Fran is just there. And then you have Ken Ford, who for some reason decides, I want to die here. I don't want to live. I don't get it. I don't know. Don't want it. He decides, yes, I'm going to die here. And lets her go up the stairs with a ladder, which, look, I'm sorry. I love him too. I know she's pregnant and she going to need help. But let me tell you something. You tell me to go and you want to stay because you want to be somebody's hamburger helper in the corner, a little man burger helper. Okay. I don't have to fight with you to save your life. You don't want it? Give it up. Fine. Give me your guns, whatever you have. I'm out. For some reason, she didn't take off. She gave him enough time, I guess, to mull things over. And he picked the smallest gun he had to pew-pew himself, which probably wouldn't have worked, and he would have been alive and felt everything. But then he decides at the last minute, hey, I want to live. And he goes into a martial arts bag of kicks, tricks, jump kicks, and side kicks. And I'm like, what the hell? That should be my number 5th. And he makes it up to the roof. Now, these zombies who can barely walk, barely move, can barely stand, somehow know how to climb a ladder and get up on the roof because they have the dexterity to climb a ladder and get up on a roof. But if I'm arguing that, quite honestly, if you watch season 1 of The Walking Dead, in the first episode when Rick gets to Atlanta, there is a zombie who's chasing him who climbs a fence and lands on his feet and keeps running. I'll say that again. He climbs the fence, lands on his feet, and keeps running. Amazing dexterity for a dead man with no muscle atrophy. But they fly away in a helicopter, and that is the end of the movie. So unlike Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, you have 2 people who live, but you have no idea what happens to them. Now, I have to speed through the next 4 movies because, quite frankly, the only one that I really, truly love is the next one, Day of the Dead. Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and Survival of the Dead, it just seems like they're connected through a central story. But to be quite honest, honest, I hate to say this, even with Dennis Hopper, John Leguizamo, and a female woman masturbating in a Jeep, could not save that movie for me. Could not. I know what you're saying. That sounds like it's pretty good. Dennis Hopper, John Leguizamo, and a woman masturbating in the Jeep. Yeah, sounds good. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, who you can't pick out, but if you pause the film, you can see them. It's going to sound harsh to me, but I couldn't care. I couldn't care less about the characters in the movie. Dead Reckoning, the lead actor. Maybe if they'd given us a better acting cast, I probably would have been more into it. Because Dennis Hopper is the a-hole, John Leguizamo is the dumb shit. It's bad casting for me. And Diary of the Dead is another bit of the same. The same people who live from Land of the Dead are in Diary of the Dead, and the same people who live from Diary of the Dead make it to an island on Survival of the Dead, where quite frankly the whole plot is Hatfields versus the McCoys. There's one guy who owns the side of an island, another guy owns the side of the island. One believes they're dead, one believes they're living and sick like Herschel, and they just have a brawl and a war, and their families and everybody dies because of the brawl and war. But the funny part is you're on an island. Literally, you could be one of the safest places in the world if you pool your resources and work together. But no, people got to people, and I don't even want to get into those. So, Survival of the Dead, I don't like. Diary of the Dead, I could care less. Land of the Dead, like I said, had me interested all the way until the movie started. So for purposes of my Romero's Dead collection, they are part of it. I'm going to say I give Survival of the Dead copper. Diary of the Dead, copper. Land of the Dead, nickel. Because Land of the Dead came after Day of the Dead, so it's a little bit better. But by the time Survival of the Dead came, it was just quite honestly, you guys didn't know what to do. And you lost me. So, Day of the Dead comes after Dawn of the Dead, and it's literally verbatim a sequel. They don't say it, but they imply it. Because literally, Day of the Dead starts with a helicopter group of people, I should say. It's got a lot of jump scares, but there's a white woman and a black man in a helicopter. Which, coincidentally enough, we ended Dawn of the Dead with a white woman and a black man in a helicopter. They don't say it's Fran. She has a different name. They don't say he's the Ken Foree character. He has a different name. But for some reason, I don't know why they didn't use Fran and Ken Foree. I don't know why. It literally was written right there for you. Helicopter lands. This is where these people made it to. They made it to a military installation underground. This is their story. Run with the ball. I do not know why we got two different actors and actresses who literally are the same subplot and ending of Dawn of the Dead for Day of the Dead, but that is beyond me. So they're out scounging supplies and looking for people as far as they can go, and then they go back to this installation where, of course, they leave the helicopter unfueled, because in this one, he says, should we fuel it up? He said, no, there's too many of them around. It's too much activity. We'll do it at night when nobody's around. Let me reiterate. It is never a good idea if you own a helicopter to not leave it fueled. In situations where shit can change from second to second, minute to minute, you want that bird filled. You need that bird filled. I'll say that again. You want that bird filled. You need that bird filled. So anyway, we're taken underground where we figure out that there is a doctor working on a problem of, he's supposed to be solving the zombie crisis, but in a situation like this is why if I'm in a zombie apocalypse, there's three types of people I don't trust. Military, police, and doctors. Y'all can go to hell. Every single last one of y'all can go to hell. And if you turn your back on me, I'm going to take the pointiest thing I got. You're done with. Because you sons of bitches, in every dead film I've ever seen in my entire life, you're concentrated on helping the dead instead of helping the living. And that's a no. That's a big no. Even Resident Evil, you're not immune from this too. You want to experiment on making and weaponizing zombies. Why? You do realize you're living too, right? Regardless. So the doctor is working on a way to help people. And his star pupil is Bub, this zombie who he rewards with brains after he teaches him tricks. Like a dog, he teaches him tricks. Now, the zombie may as well be a smart zombie, but he's still a zombie. You do realize sooner or later, Bub is going to eat you. That's all I'm saying. So the military enters, who I guess are protecting these people when they were still doctors. And the military people are like, we don't know why we're protecting you. I don't see why we're still here. And quite frankly, there's a woman. Let's take her. Once again, my favorite angry trope when it comes to American films. Why do you always resort to taking women by force? There are zombies, literal dead people in this world. You don't know, besides bites, how it's spread. It could be spread through Kool-Aid, contact, or sex. Don't know, because many diseases are spread by sex, but you don't know. You want, the first thing that comes into your mind is to take the woman by force. There's no other priority right now, from one day to the next, of you surviving than getting some. This is a hate I have for American cinema. I know it happens elsewhere in other places, but it's concentrated so much in American cinema that it annoys the living shit out of me. That's another reason why I don't trust the military. 28 days later, first thing you get to the compound, welcome to us. We saved you. Here's some food. Here's some drink. Take a warm shower. The water is warm. By the way, my men have been without women for weeks, and I promised them some women. Why do we always have to go there? And don't get me wrong, I understand sick people will go there in these situations, but it doesn't need to be illustrated all the time. Was that in Night of the Living Dead? No. Was that in Dawn of the Dead? No. Not there. Unfortunately, everything from there forward concentrates on that. Even The Walking Dead didn't concentrate on too much. They had a few sex scenes, but they didn't concentrate. Well, yeah, they did, because yeah, I just remember that scene underground with Jenner when Shane tried to take Lori by force. So it's even in The Walking Dead. So they're not even immune. So anyway, the military has strong reservations against the doctors, and you can see where this is going. People who live together underground in a bunker will get cabin fever and go against each other. And then the military finds out that the doctor is not only not trying to cure the disease, but that he is just teaching him tricks by feeding him some of their soldiers. Yeah, and that's where society's structure breaks down underground, because the doctors who don't have the weapons or the means, the capabilities of protecting themselves, have to depend on the military, who has all the power, who now is just like, we gonna take what we want and we gonna cap all of y'all, leaving an insurrection underground of epidemic proportions, which there is a lot of visceral moments. There's a lot of jump scares. There's a lot of zombie chicken eating action on people. Romero's good for that. And the movie comes to a blow when they make it up above and they're finally able to get to the helicopter and fly off. And yet again, the same ending, just I would say maybe a minute more than Dawn of the Dead. Fly away on a helicopter. They're trying to go to a deserted island, any island to land on, which 2004's Dawn of the Dead takes care of that, because when they land on an island, they're happy they made it to an island. You hear "Down with the Sickness," ooh, ah, and you see zombies come out the bushes and they're all running around. Look, it wraps what would happen at Day of the Dead. I get it. But I'd like to think in my mind they made it to an island and they're living, eating bananas and making coladas and coconut phones like off of Gilligan's Island, and they're living their best life. I would like to think that. That's my mind. So for that purpose, I X out Dawn of the Dead 2004 because it just does not fit within this structure. It's its own movie. Even though it's called Dawn of the Dead, it is not my Dawn of the Dead. When I think Dawn of the Dead, I truly think of the 1970s version. That's the first place I go. So, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. Night of the Living Dead, by no means is it a perfect movie. I do not like the ending, but I have to give credit where credit is due. It is literally the foundation that makes zombie genre today. Platinum. Dawn of the Dead, much better movie. Stupid little things, but a much better movie. Much more sussed out, much more well thought out. Ken Foree, you deserve an award for your presence in that movie. Not saying that Fran and Roger and Flyboy didn't do a great job, but you, all the way up until the end, you held that shit together until you decided that you don't want to live anymore. That's where you lost me, bruh. Anyway, double platinum. Dawn of the Dead, double platinum. Day of the Dead, platinum. It had more action than Night of the Living Dead. It had more turmoil than Dawn of the Dead, but it also had some moments that were genuinely creepy and some moments that were genuinely jump scared. I'll give you one of the moments. There's a scene where the lady's looking at the calendar on the wall, and for no other reason than them just wanting to screw you over and pee on yourself and spill your coffee and spit out your Sprite, they make hands, thousands of hands come through the wall and try to grab her, and you're like, what the hell was that? And they're like, oh, it's just a dream. Why? Don't get me wrong, I'm not hating. You did give me some jump scares. If you watching that movie in a quiet room at night, you're going to have some moments. You're going to have some moments with that movie. But as a whole series, all 6 movies, I would say Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead will pull you down like an anchor. Land of the Dead, I can give a pass because it's something to watch. But like I said, not even. Dennis Hopper's crazy behind. Shaun of the Dead, man. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost being in it as quick cameos. And a masturbating woman who's kind of hot in a Jeep for no reason can save this movie. And I know that's why it was thrown in there. It was thrown in there so that there was a reason for you to stick around. Because it's not at the very beginning. It just comes out of nowhere and you're like, well, where the hell did that come from? Because it's meant to intrigue you enough to stay with it. These starbursts in the sky and fireworks that make zombies go, ooh, look, fireworks, let's follow it. It's never been done before in any other movie. I don't know why it was done in here. And then you have a smart zombie leading all the zombies to this dead city. Ironically enough, there is a TV series from The Walking Dead spinoff of a spinoff called Dead City. The Negan and Maggie series. Not to be confused with the Daryl series, or the Coming Carol series, or the Coming Rick and Michonne series. After The Walking Dead ended series. And I'm not talking about Fear the Walking Dead or, Day Dead Skirts or Dead Children or Dead Alive or any of the other spinoffs that they had, because they had so many spinoffs of a spinoff of a spinoff that obviously this world is never going to end and they're going to keep seeking out cash, and I could care less. I don't want to watch it anymore. I'm done. I caved in. Matter of fact, I caved in probably around the time Rick died off. Michonne just walked away and left her 2 kids. Daryl walked off and just never came back. I don't know what the hell happened there. Carl was dead. And Negan became the main person. No disrespect to Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He became the main person and showrunner of the series. I kind of lost it then because the plot didn't make sense. Neither did anybody else. All the communities you come across, it was a rinse and repeat thing. Every new season was a different community you come across. You're going to have to fight, overtake, or live, or blend together with, and then keep going. And then the next season, there's another community. If all of these damn communities really did exist, then seasons 1 through 5 of The Walking Dead wouldn't have happened. And they're so close together. They would have seen some of this, any of this activity. So, George Romero's Living Dead collection. With Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and some parts of Land of the Dead, I have to give it a total platinum series. It is the birth of zombies, the genre that adapted everything in our worst nightmares from walking zombies, because even Romero started going into the running zombie motion. I mean, they were all slow most of the time, but once you get past Land of the Dead and Diary of the Dead, now you have quick moving zombies, so things is different. And you can go all the way to Survival of the Dead, where dead people can ride horses and communicate, and we're not even going there. So as a whole, we're going to give George Romero's Living Dead collection a platinum rating. Will I do all the Return of the Living Deads? Probably. But they're not part of the Living Dead collection, even though they are the Living Dead collection, because O'Bannon got the Living Dead and Romero got Of the Dead. It's some legal matters. I don't want to jump into it. I don't want to become part of it. Doesn't matter. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and children jelly spoons, did you watch all 6 of these movies? Do you share my opinion? Do you know that these movies even existed? Did you know that were even 3 more in the Romero series? Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and Survival of the Dead. Was that even part of the conversation? Did you ever see Night of the Living Dead or the remake in color? Have you ever seen Dawn of the Dead, which is the epitome and pinnacle of zombie movies from the 70s? Or did you see Day of the Dead, which they remade a new version of that as well? And we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about none of the remakes, the newer versions, because how can people in the 70s and 80s get it right, and then you're talking about the 90s and 2000s, when you have better technology and better ideals and storylines, suck so much? How can you suck more? They didn't have the technology you have. They didn't have the ideas you have. They didn't have the abilities and tools you have. How can you suck more than they did back in the day? I call it the Jurassic Park principle. Jurassic Park's CG is the standard of CG. Believable, blended, real life effects and practical with CG so great you couldn't tell. Now we're 30 years later, and I've seen better CG on YouTube videos by people who use Adobe After Effects rather than movies and VFX studios. And that is why I've drawn a line with modern cinema. So in the dead genre, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead, they will always be my kings. But if I was partial to one of them, Dawn of the Dead is my all-time favorite. Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, Survival of the Dead, I do have, but I have them because they are Romero namesakes only. There's no other reason for me to watch them. I will not pull them out on a sunny day and be like, hey, I want to watch this movie. No, don't want to do it. Don't need it. Don't want it. I've experienced it. I went down the road. Don't need to do it again. Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day and Dead, I can pull out and watch a bunch of times. They have a rewatchability that is off the charts. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for staying with me to the end of this magnificent George Romero Living Dead Collection Marathon. You now know my opinions, thoughts, and wants, likes, promises, and what the hells from the 6-movie collection. And I will say, without it, our genre today would not be what it is. So I give all due respects and honors to George Romero, his family, his ideas, and O'Bannon for coming up with such a crazy thought and a gamble that end up paying off even to this day in 2025. 24K, it's your boy the Game Ninja. Rest in peace, George Romero. Rest in peace, Tony Todd, who we recently lost. And I did watch the last Final Destination film. I will speak on it. And rest in peace to Peter Kwong from The Golden Child, Big Trouble in Little China, and Prince of Darkness. May you guys find the peace in the afterlife that you could not find here in this life amongst us. I'll see you guys next time from the Game Dojo. It's your boy the Game Ninja. Check you later.